Guys, welcome back for part 3. In this episode, basically going to show you how I went about making the jig to locate the rear mounts. Also clearancing the chassis rails, so where the subframe ends up doesn't quite clear, so I ended up taking a little bit out of the chassis rails. Also do a little bit of 3D printing to make just a couple of little spikes for it's like a ruler type thing, just to make sure that all the measurements line up. Just behind me here is the 31 that I plan to put the IRS into. I am a little bit ahead in terms of actually doing things compared to publishing the videos. So this is part 3. I'm probably up to filming maybe part 5 or something. It is going along well, it's all working out. I had some minor setbacks, we'll call them that, but yeah, it's all turning out alright in the end, so stay tuned. Thanks guys. Alright, so the first piece I'm going to make is going to be using a bit of this. It's just 50mm flat bar, 10mm thickness, and I'm going to join this hole here to this hole here, so just a piece straight across here. And because these are in line with each other, it's going to give us a nice reference point so that we can get this square. So these are M10 by 1.25. So cut this, put some holes in it, get it bolted up. You can see there they've actually got 2 different M's, so this means that they're not the same on either side. So the X measurement for the left hand side 361.5, and for the right hand side 363. So distance between centers 724.5 according to the theory. So I'll just turn around and we'll have a bit of a look. So we're looking for 724.5. It's a bit hard with the tape measure, but that looks absolutely perfect. So I'll find the center of this, put 2 holes in it, exactly 724.5 apart from each other, and that'll give us our nice straight datum to line this one up. I've got a bit of an interesting situation here. I don't know if this one here is going to get in the way, but it seems to be reinforcing the sill to the rail. So again, I don't know exactly where the forward mount points are going to belong, but at the moment this is a bit higher than this, so I guess I'll just grind it until I hit this surface and see how we go. Alright guys, this is what it looks like after I've just ground that all off. I'm not sure how well you can see it. I'll just move this around. This bit's a good 20mm higher. I can't add it back in, well I can add it back in, but we'll see how we go with this. See if it interferes, gets in the way. If it does, I'll have to take more out. So that's one side. Let's take out this side. So I've got the subframe sitting roughly in place. It barely interfered back here with these brackets, but they're out of the way now. The subframe has to be mounted on the same plane as this. So at the moment you can see it's got to be more like this, and that's because the front needs to come down, and I'll show you what's got to happen. So in the previous video I mentioned these caster rod brackets, traction rod, whatever you want to call it. That's actually touching the rail here. So some people do notch the back of these, but I'm probably going to notch the rail so that if I ever bend this, or if I want to put another one in here, it just bolts straight up. So that's what I'll probably do next, once I've got all the clearance that I need to drop this down. I mean, we can only probably go down about 20 mil. Alright guys, here it is again. I actually moved, needed to come rearwards a little bit. So we're sitting 190 at the moment from the fuel tank mount bolts to the rear subframe. So you can't see it there because it's behind the fuel inlet, but here to here in this plane 190. So the drawings lead me to believe that that's right. We'll see. So with that there, gives us about 50 mil to come down. I'm going to try and fillet the rail. I might start back here, come down here and just take a plane off, because I need to be able to do this on my car, and the bit that I need to cut out works out perfectly over this hole. I'm going to make some brackets. So basically I get to my car, bolt on the brackets, trace around, and I should be able to create the same thing. Just dummied up some cardboard here. Gonna cut these out of 2mm, buzz them together, put a bolt in it, and then chop this out. Made these brackets, go in place there. Just trace around the outside, and that's what I'm going to cut. So the idea is, if this is right, so if this is enough clearance, I can transfer this exact cut out to my car. And obviously I'll have to make the infill panels for the rail. So I'll just chop this out now. There's obviously the crush tube in here, so I don't know how much that's going to want to hang on to it all. Fucking spoil. Okay. So obviously that's just the skin, and there's a box section with the crush tube in here. It's actually, looks pretty good actually. That should do for clearance. Just bolts up like that. You just obviously trace around. That's where I've chopped it off to make it the same as the other one. So tried to get them pretty much symmetrical. See the holes line up there. It's good enough. Alright, time to cut this side out. Alright, I've got both sides cut out now on the rails, and I've just dummied it up where the subframe's going to wind up. So all the drawings actually have these surfaces here parallel with, usually there's some members on the bottom of the car that are exactly horizontal. So in this case, the rail that's been cut off up here, this one here is horizontal to the datum. So I've actually set this up so they're horizontal, and if you can imagine this whole thing pivoting backwards and forwards, to get those parallel you can only go down so much at the front. So I've actually put some washers in there. I'm going to use another piece of C-channel for the front mounts. So with that all the way down, obviously that dictates where this goes, and again this is obviously parallel with this, so that's where it ends up sitting. So it's about 40-50 mil in there, so that'll just get boxed in. I don't know how well you can see that in there, but the cutouts worked out pretty much perfect. I think it's got about 10 mil clearance at the worst. You can also see just through the back there, bit of the clearance from the rail cutouts. So the next step is make the jig, and that'll tie this one here that we drilled earlier. That'll allow me to tie this into the main studs on the rear member. So it actually works out really well. That's going to come out like this and obviously be spaced properly, but I mean this distance in here we should be able to tweak the height of this with just a few washers. Again, this is from the back. What I'm going to end up doing is I've got it's just a bit of 50 by 10 mil flat bar, and what I'm going to do is drill a 20 mil hole in the end of this one. Obviously it'll be a bit longer, and the position of this along this bar, yeah, that comes from the drawings, and obviously the distance of how far it goes out, I think I've calculated to be 190. So I might just cut these a bit longer and I'll just tack them to this bar. So once I've got it where I think it should be, we'll put some arms on it and see how it works out. But if it doesn't work, we can just grind them off and move around and have a bit of a play. So imagine that's the center line of the car. That's our fuel tank mount bolts. These dimensions are actually not the same. So on this side we've got 361.5, 363. If we look back at our S14, the same dimensions. So distance from the center line out to, instead in this case we're not looking at the fuel tank mount bolts, we're looking at the rear subframe mount bolts. So the center line to those is 308 both sides, so that's 616. So at this stage we're going to assume that this is 190 just from these calculations. So that's 308, 308. So at the moment I've got a bit of flat bar installed here. So all we got to do is work out how far along from these holes. We've got to put another piece of flat bar here. So obviously these get drilled out to 20 mil, and these, I'll leave this a bit longer. So we can have some wiggle room, whether these have to go either that way or come back out this way. But at this stage, I've calculated this distance to be 190. So we'll give that a shot first and see how it goes. So center to center, I've got to come back on this side 55 mils, and on the other side 53.5. So I'll mark those out now. Alright, so the bar's all marked up. For these ones, go along here, I'm going to cut them to 300 and then drill 2 holes, one in each, for the studs to pass through. Alright, so I basically use this as a bit of a jig. So first off, I bolted these ones to the subframe and made sure they were square against this one, and so the distance between the center of this bolt here and the center line of these holes, which will correspond to the fuel tank mount bolts, that's 190, that distance. And then I've just calculated, I think this is about 55 mil from center line of this bolt to the center line of this bolt in this direction here. So this actually took me about an hour to do. It was a bit of fucking around, but it's all good now. So I'm going to try and tack this on both sides and see if I can keep it straight. Just over at the car again, I've just got the cross member back in the car, sitting roughly where it's going to be. I've got this to sit fairly parallel with the flat section of this rail here. I've just got this spirit level sitting on the rail as well, and that's going to show us exactly how far, in this case below. So this member here will have to be about, I'm going to call it 10 mil below this one. And the reason that this has to come up so much and it can't just sit all the way down is because obviously this has to remain parallel with this rail. And I'll just show you the back of the car. So up there, obviously there's only so far that we can go down, so I've actually got that spaced out a little bit, ready for some channel or some plate or something that I'll weld in there with the other bolt. Alright, no combination of washers would give me 10 mil, so let's make a spacer. Alright, so here's the jig from earlier. It's just got a couple of tacks on it if it wants to focus. So put those spacers on. And that should be where this needs to sit. And basically from here I'll just box it in. Just going to take a few measurements to see how close it is. Interesting to see how much plays in there. Can't really move around too much. I just went and had dinner, came back, had a bit of a think about this. These spacers actually need to be 30 mil because we're taking it off the rail, so you got 10 there, plus the 10 you want to go down. So I'll take this back out, make these 30, bolt it back in. I have no idea how long they took to print. Just under 2 hours, I reckon. They've just got a bit of support material on them that needs to be broken off. Usually comes off pretty easily. So this stuff is just in place because obviously it's printed like this, and under here, once I show you, there's a bit of an overhang. So just sitting on the car, I've got, it's actually 3 meters, 25 mil aluminium tube with 1 mil wall thickness. So that's going to make up the main parts of, it's basically a tool that I'm going to use to measure, check measurements on the car. So point to point, make sure the car's still straight. And once I've established that, check that the subframe is in fact where I was intending to put the mounts. So I'll just chop that up now. So because I'm cutting aluminium here, I'm just going to use some wax and then I'll chop it up. So I bought 2 of these brackets here. And they're actually called, I think they were ended up being called cross brackets, and they're made specifically for 25mm OD tubing. So what I plan to do is put 2 of these on that big piece that I just cut, and with those 3D printed spikes I should be able to come up with a bit of a ruler. So here's that piece that I printed. I think I printed it 1/2 mil undersize. So I'll just show you the kind of fit. Beautiful. So I've put the tool together. The spikes are actually on the bottom of the 2 vertical pieces of tube there. So the idea behind the spikes is the self-centering. So the 2 holes that they're actually sitting in, so the reading should be 1012. I'm getting about 1014. That could be to do with, obviously, the car was cut in half so close to these points. It could be that I'll just give you a bit of a closer shot. They've been bashed around a bit. So I don't know how well it comes up on camera. If I just lift this one out, you can see here, it's seen better days. It's probably been jacked up a few times from this point. This is one of the few reference points that I do have other than the fuel tank mount bolts. So I drew up the whole chassis in SolidWorks. You could work it out with Trig, but SolidWorks makes it a lot easier. And then just drew a heap of lines. I'll just show that on the screen now of what I'm working off of. So this drawing here just shows diagonals between obviously the known points to other known points from the chassis diagram, so I can work out diagonals just to make sure that the car's straight. It's also got the new mounts. I've drawn those on the diagram where I'm trying to put the subframe, and where I think I've pretty much got it on the car at the moment, and just to check the diagonals just to see how we're going. It's really a comparative tool. It doesn't actually have any incremental measurements on here. It's just I put it in, get it centered, and then transfer it to the tape measure. I'm guessing, well, if I use this as an indicator, we're going to get about 2 mil. We'll just see how we go, really. I will be recording observations just off camera. Alright, so it takes a bit of fucking around to get it spot on. The car is leveled, so that wants to sit in the hole over that side, and this, when that is level, is smack bang in the middle of this bolt. So what I'm going to do is just above these ones, I'm going to measure the outside diameter from that one to this one with a tape measure, and then obviously take off one of them. Should give me the centers.
have to say that must be within a mil. So we're a mil longer in this direction than we are in that one. But remember, the distance between here and there didn't quite match, so that looks like it's within 1 mil of where it's supposed to be, at least measuring it this way. The camera's actually at the front of the car at the moment, looking rearwards, and where it's ended up, it looks like it's too far this way. So this one here is basically right on the side of this rail, whereas this one here, it's got a bit of play in it. Like it's definitely moved over this way in comparison to the rails. So looking at where it wound up, you would assume that it's wrong, but that's where it belongs. I've also measured from the first measurement I did. It's not super accurate, but I actually measured from this face here, and I put a straight edge against the outside of the guard. So one of the first measurements I did was got this level and touching the guard. Not the most accurate considering how beaten these guards are, and then just touch the tape against the side of these bolts, and on both sides I'm getting 527, and I've measured time and time again, and yet repeatedly 527. So to the guards it looks right. Using the that measuring contraption I've come up with, some dimensions say spot on, some dimensions say up to a mil out, so I'm happy with where it's at. I'll leave it there for the end of episode 2, guys. It's all turned out pretty good. The cross member came together well with the jig. All the measurements seem to work out pretty well. We're within 1 mil, so more than happy with that. Next episode, hopefully look at boxing in that member that I made and working on the rear mounts as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.